you are made of meat. That's it. That's the whole thing. A lump of fatty, squishy, slightly gross meat sitting in your skull right now is somehow generating the experience of you, your memories, your dreams, your embarrassing crush, your ability to feel genuinely sad when a fictional dog dies in a movie. How? How does meat do that? Nobody fully knows. But here's what we do know, and buckle up, because it's going to make you look at your own head very differently. We're about to tear down everything you thought you knew about your own mind, and trust me, you'll want to stay till the very end for this. If you love unraveling the weirdest mysteries of science and human nature, hit subscribe so you never miss a video like this. Okay, so first, what even is the brain? Like, physically? It weighs about 1.5 kilograms. It has the consistency of firm tofu. It looks like a wrinkled walnut that went to the gym. And it uses about 20 watts of power to run, which is less than a dim light bulb. Wow. Your entire personality, your entire life, your entire sense of self running on less electricity than a Christmas tree ornament. That's either humbling or horrifying, and honestly, it's both. Now here's the foundational question we need to answer before anything else makes sense. How does the brain actually process anything? Because the brain isn't a solid blob that thinks. It's made up of cells. Specific cells. And these cells are not like normal cells. They're weird. They're electric. And there are roughly 86 billion of them. Wow. That number is so big it's basically meaningless, so let me give you a comparison. If you counted 1 neuron per second, it would take you over 2,700 years to count them all. You would start counting in ancient Rome, and you still wouldn't be done. That's how many neurons you have. So what is a neuron? A neuron is a cell that does one specific spectacular thing. It fires electrical signals. Think of it like a tiny wire in a massive, incomprehensibly tangled circuit board. Each neuron has a body, little branching arms called dendrites that receive incoming signals, and one long tail called an axon that sends signals out. When a neuron fires, it's not doing something mechanical, like flipping a switch. It's doing something chemical and electrical at the same time, and this is where things get genuinely interesting. Here's the thing about neurons, they don't actually touch each other. There's a tiny gap between every neuron and every other neuron. That gap is called a synapse. So when a signal needs to travel from one neuron to the next, it can't just jump across like a spark. It has to be converted from electrical to chemical, then back to electrical again. That's like translating a text message into Morse code, sending it across a river by boat, and then translating it back on the other side. And your brain does this billions of times per second right now while you're watching this video and probably also thinking about food. So here's how it actually works. A neuron is sitting there, resting. Everything's calm. The inside of the cell has a slightly negative electrical charge compared to the outside. We call this the resting potential. Now, something triggers it. Maybe you touched something hot. Maybe you heard your name. Maybe you saw a meme that was just too relatable. Charged particles, mostly sodium ions, rush into the cell through tiny gates in the membrane. The charge inside flips from negative to positive. That flip is an electrical pulse. That pulse is called an action potential. Wah! It races down the axon at speeds up to 120 meters per second. It hits the end of the axon. And now, here's that translation I mentioned. It triggers the release of tiny chemical messengers called neurotransmitters, which float across the synapse and land on the next neuron. That neuron reads the chemical signal, converts it back into electricity, and the whole thing continues. Your entire inner life is this process, repeated over and over, endlessly. One more thing before we go deeper. Neurons follow what's called the all-or-nothing principle. A neuron either fires completely or doesn't fire at all. There's no kind of firing, no halfway pulse. It's binary, like a 1 or a 0, which means your brain, this organic, biological, emotional, art-making, love-feeling machine, is at its most fundamental level, running on binary logic. Just like a computer. Wait. Hold on. Your brain and your laptop are more similar than you thought. But here's the twist that makes them completely different. Your laptop's circuit board doesn't rewire itself based on what websites you visit. Wow. Your brain does exactly that. Every single time you learn something, experience something, feel something, neurons that fire together, wire together. The connections literally get physically stronger. Your brain is a computer that edits its own code in real time. And that changes everything about what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so now you know the hardware. Neurons, synapses, action potentials, the whole electric chemistry magic trick. But knowing that neurons fire doesn't explain why you panic in a job interview and completely forget your own name. It doesn't explain why you can remember every lyric to a song you heard in 2009, but forget why you walked into a room 30 seconds ago. For that, we need to talk about structure. Because the brain isn't just 86 billion neurons floating in a random soup. They're organized into specific regions with specific jobs. And those regions, they are constantly arguing with each other. Let's start at the bottom and work up. Deep inside your brain, you've got what's often called the reptilian brain, the brainstem, and the cerebellum. These handle the stuff that keeps you alive without you having to think about it. Breathing, heart rate, balance, reflexes. If your whole thinking brain disappeared overnight, your brainstem would still wake you up, keep your heart going, and make sure you don't fall over. It's ancient. Every vertebrate on Earth has one. You share this hardware with a lizard. That's not an insult. That's just a fact about how deep this structure goes. Now, layer up. Just above and around the brainstem sits the limbic system, the emotional brain. This is the part of your brain that cares. About survival. About threats. About social connection. About whether people like you. The limbic system contains some of the most famous real estate in all of neuroscience. The hippocampus, shaped like a little seahorse, which is responsible for forming new memories. The hypothalamus, which regulates hunger, thirst, body temperature, and your biological drive to reproduce. Basically every primal urge you've ever had to resist in public. And then there's the star of the limbic system, the celebrity of your skull. The amygdala. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It's always on. It's always scanning. It's the part of your brain that hears a loud noise in the dark and floods your body with adrenaline before your conscious mind has even processed that the noise existed. The amygdala doesn't wait for logic. It acts first and asks questions never. When you're watching a horror movie and your rational brain knows that nothing bad is happening, that it's just a screen, that you're safe on your couch eating chips, your amygdala has already launched a full threat response. Because evolution didn't optimize for accuracy. It optimized for speed. Better to panic over nothing 1,000 times than to stay calm once and get eaten. Now here's the plot twist in this whole story. At the very top of the brain, most recently evolved, sitting right behind your forehead, is the prefrontal cortex. This is your rational brain. Your planning brain. The part that thinks about consequences, control impulses, makes long-term decisions, and generally tries to make you a functional adult. And the prefrontal cortex is supposed to be in charge. It's the CEO of the brain. But here's the actual hierarchy in practice. The amygdala sends direct, fast, high-priority signals to basically every part of your brain. The prefrontal cortex has to send slower, more roundabout signals back. So in a moment of stress or threat or overwhelming emotion, the amygdala can, and does, essentially cut the CEO out of the meeting entirely. This is called amygdala hijack. And it's why you've said things in an argument that you immediately regretted. It's why good people panic. It's why smart people make terrible impulsive decisions. Your emotional brain can override your rational brain faster than your rational brain can even realize what's happening. You are not as in control as you think you are. Nobody is. And honestly, that's a little terrifying, but also kind of a relief. Now, Okay, stop. I need you to actually feel this next thing, because this is the midpoint of the video, and this is the part where I want you to put down your phone for just 1 second. Actually, don't. Keep watching. But feel this. Right now, as you process the words I'm saying, something physical is changing in your brain. The neurons that are understanding this concept are forming new synaptic connections. The pathways in your brain are literally being restructured in real time by the act of thinking. Your thoughts are physical events. Your memories are physical objects. The feeling you had when you experienced the best day of your life, that feeling exists as a specific traceable pattern of synaptic connections in your neural tissue. Love is structural. Grief is structural. Personality is structure. You are the shape of your own neural connections. And those connections were built by every experience you've ever had, every person you've ever met, every book, every heartbreak, every random Tuesday afternoon you've mostly forgotten. Your brain is a living autobiography written in electricity and protein. That is not a metaphor. That is literally what is happening inside your head right now. Take a second. Okay, moving on. So the brain has regions, and those regions are constantly negotiating, or straight up fighting, over who gets to control your behavior. But we still haven't talked about the most addictive molecule your brain makes. The one that Silicon Valley engineers have literally reverse engineered to hack your attention. The one that's been blamed for everything from gambling addiction to why you can't stop scrolling at 2 a.m. We're talking about dopamine, and almost everything you think you know about it is wrong. Here's the myth. Dopamine is the pleasure chemical. You do something good, dopamine floods your brain, you feel good. Simple. Except neuroscientists figured out in the 1990s that this is completely backwards. In a now famous experiment, researcher Wolfram Schultz was recording dopamine neurons in monkeys. He gave monkeys a juice reward, and yes, dopamine spiked when the reward arrived. But then he added a signal, a light that predicted the juice was coming. And something wild happened. Wah! Over time, the dopamine spike stopped happening when the juice arrived and started happening when the light turned on. The dopamine had shifted from the reward to the prediction of the reward. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. Dopamine is about anticipation. It's about the possibility of reward. Dopamine is the maybe. And maybe is the most powerful word in the human brain. This is why slot machines are more addictive than vending machines. A vending machine gives you a guaranteed Cheeto every time. Certain reward. Your dopamine system goes, fine, whatever, noted. But a slot machine gives you a Cheeto sometimes, randomly, unpredictably. Uncertain reward. Your dopamine system goes absolutely feral. Variable reward schedules create more dopamine activity than certain ones. Every app designer knows this. Every notification badge, every pull to refresh, every like and reply, and new follower, those are all slot machines. Your feed is a slot machine. You are the monkey. The light just turned on, and you keep pulling the lever looking for juice. Now let's bring in the other famous molecule. Serotonin. Often paired with dopamine like they're a duo, but they're doing completely different things. Serotonin is more about stability than pursuit. It's associated with feelings of contentment, social belonging, and calm. Where dopamine says, go chase that thing, serotonin says, you're okay, things are okay, you belong here. Low serotonin is strongly associated with depression and anxiety. And here's the connection that ties these two systems together. Dopamine and serotonin both depend on receptors, proteins on the surface of neurons that catch these chemical messengers. And receptors can adapt. Use a pathway too much, and the brain downregulates. It removes receptors to try to rebalance. This is why tolerance happens. This is why the third coffee of the day doesn't hit like the first. This is why someone who's been on social media for 5 hours feels more anxious and empty than someone who just opened the app. The receptors are compensating. Your brain is trying to protect itself from overstimulation by making itself less sensitive. And then you need more stimulation to feel normal. You can probably see where this road leads. Here's the concept that ties the whole thing together. Your brain is not a passive receiver of the world. It's a prediction machine. Every moment of your experience is your brain generating its best guess about reality based on past patterns, and then checking that guess against incoming data. What you see, hear, feel, that's not raw input. It's a constructed simulation. Your brain is constantly running a model of the world and updating it when something surprising happens. Those updates, those wait, I was wrong moments, are processed partly by dopamine. Which means dopamine is literally the signal that your model of reality needs to change. Learning is a dopamine event. Surprise is a dopamine event. The feeling of understanding something you didn't understand before, that little "oh" moment, that's dopamine. And now you understand why this video format works. The hook. The question. The "but wait." Every single one of those is a controlled dopamine trigger. We built this entire video out of the exact mechanism we're explaining. The medium is the message, and the message is, your brain is beautiful and deeply, deeply gameable. So we're back where we started. 1.5 kilograms of wrinkled, fatty, electrical, chemical, constantly rewiring, prediction-making, emotion hijacking, dopamine-chasing meat, sitting in your skull, somehow producing the entire experience of your life. Every laugh, every memory, every moment of clarity at 3 a.m., every dumb thing you've ever done because your amygdala took the wheel, all of it is this thing. This weird, squishy, incredible thing. And here is the question that neuroscience still cannot answer, that philosophers have been losing sleep over for centuries, and that the smartest brains on Earth have not cracked yet. Why does any of this feel like anything at all? We can map every neuron. We can trace every signal. We can measure every chemical. But at the end of all of that, there's still the fact that you are experiencing this moment right now. Not just processing it. Experiencing it. That experience, that inner life, that thing philosophers call consciousness, science doesn't know where it comes from. It doesn't know how matter becomes experience. And until we figure that out, the most mysterious object in the known universe is the one you've been carrying around your whole life, right above your face. If your brain is just a physical prediction machine running on meat and electricity, do you actually have free will? Or is every choice you make already decided by your biology? And drop your answers in the comments below, because this is one debate I need to see play out. And if you want to keep exploring the weirdest corners of science with us, make sure to subscribe.